disruption of service. So if you have something that you're offering, and it's, you know, maybe it's a wheelchair lift, maybe it's an elevator, maybe it's something that someone with a disability is going to depend on, right? And they know it's at your lodge, they know it's at your facility. It's a big reason why they're coming, because it's making it possible for them to have a good experience. And that thing breaks down, you want to make sure you notify somehow on your website, or you call your client and you let them know it's broken down. So you can't just have the technology and then people show up and so sorry, it's not working. You know, they're there, they're going to get pissed off, right? That's when the complaint comes. So if you're going to have it and it doesn't work, and this stuff breaks. I mean, I got lots of broken toys and tools and stuff in my drawers at home. Stuff breaks. But what you're expected to do is just publish, somehow notify on your website that, you know, that building, the cabin with the accessible washroom is being renovated this summer. You know, therefore it won't be available. You got to do that so people aren't coming up there investing a lot of money and time, coming up there and then finding out, you know, it's not going to work for them and they're going to have to leave, or they're going to have a really crummy experience. So notification of any disruption in those types of services is mandatory. Feedback, you know, complaints, feedback, complaints, same thing, right? So how do you, that's another thing this policy touches on. They want to facilitate communication. And so what they're saying is you got to have some sort of feedback / complaint process. And you got to have it, you got to train your staff that if someone's having a not good experience or they're making a suggestion, they have to say, okay, when someone talks like this and says this stuff, you got to write it down, I want to see it. It's as simple as that, right? You got to write down, make sure if someone has dietary needs, that it's written down, it's passed on to the chef, the cook. And so there's got to be a feedback process. People have to understand that this information needs to be captured, needs to be shared, it needs to somehow be tracked so that people know that things are being taken care of properly. And that's just good management, but you got to document that, and people need to know that that exists. And that's where this policy comes in, this regulation, is that people need to know that if they have a bad experience, there's a way of making a complaint. If they want to have a recommendation or have a good suggestion, that there's a way for you to hear that suggestion. That's all it is. It's just a mechanism, and that so that people know that that exists and that it's possible to give that information. And then also that there's a response to that, right? So it doesn't just disappear into the black suggestion box and goes into lighting the fire next winter, but that they're going to get some feedback. Thank you very much. An email, you know, a little note, postcard, whatever. Thank you for your suggestion. I'm sorry you didn't have a great trip. We're looking into this. You know, please contact us again next year, and I'm sure we'll have things resolved. We're going to make some changes, whatever it is. Some sort of, you can just say we're looking into it, or some resolution, whatever. You've got to provide some feedback. Training, and we're getting near the end here. So you got to training policies. What we talked about here to deal with those soft issues is one thing, and then there's the training, right? You got to have some training, and so you got to have training for your staff. You got to have training for people that are not directly working for you, but are intricate to your operations. You know, the person running the float plane, the fly-in service. You've got to give them some training too a little bit, so that they know if you're going to have some clients coming with service dogs, that the guy is not saying, "Should bring a dog on my plane," you know. That just spoils it, right? So it's in your best interest to make sure that people involved in your operation, whether they're working for you directly or indirectly, are trained. And it also goes up the ladder. It's not just your staff, but the people who are making the policies, enforcing the policies and the rules, the managers, right? That they also have some training, because it's their, you know, it's their attitude that's going to be that's going to come down through the staff. So you want to make sure that everyone's singing from the same songbook. Interactions, you know, how do you interact as part of the training? You know, how do you deal with someone? You know, giving them a little bit of information on how to guide a blind person. You don't just go over and grab them by the arm and start dragging them around, right? Or, you know, if someone's in a wheelchair, you just don't go over there and start pushing them around in their wheelchair. There's personal space, a little bit of dignity that has to be respected. So some of that interaction kind of training is really important. How to deal with the equipment if you have some existing equipment, like I said, you have to train on that. How to deal with feedback and interruptions in service. So there are trainings on those kind of 4 main areas. Here's some do's, don'ts kind of thing, some suggestions, and I'm not going to get into the whole training thing here, but I'll just quickly go over things just as we're getting into ending up here. So disabilities can be caused by all sorts of things. It can be a disease, it can be inherited, it can be an accident, but in the end, really, does it matter? You know, is it important to know when the person went blind? But sometimes it can be helpful. If a situation comes up and you say, well, how much can you see anyways? You know, can you see that? If I tell you, cast towards that stump over there, can you see the stump? Or, you know, if we go down, how much do I need to help you on the dock in terms of getting into the boat, you know, with the transfer? So knowing practical stuff is more important than just satisfying curiosity about how it happened, right? Putting the people first. So handicapped, the disabled, handicapper. I always think, you know, I go through this every time I meet someone new. At first it's like, oh my God, he's blind. Look at the eyes. The eyes don't look blind, but he's blind. You know, oh, he's blind. And it's all about blind, right? And it's just, you know, okay, let's get by that. And then they get to know me a little bit. And then it's like, yeah, hey, Lawrence, yeah, how's it going? Hey, you want a can of pop? And they toss me a can of pop, and then they see it bounce off my forehead. And then they go, oh, crap, yeah, he's blind, I forgot. And that's the third stage, right? Is that, yeah, it's Lawrence. Hey, you know, remember, when he's around getting, you know, he's blind, so be careful around the dock kind of thing, you know? So, you know, it's that thing. Yeah, it's the person first, the disability second, right? It's like, you know, it's Joe, he's hard of hearing, it's Sam, he's got a bad leg, it's whatever, right? But it's always the person. And then you just know their little intricacies, their little idiosyncrasies, and everyone covers everyone's ass. You know, it's all about just covering for the other person and helping make sure everyone gets along and has a good time. Yeah, like disability, it's not a handicap, right? We talked about that language. In handicap washroom, well, those washrooms will always be handicapped for whatever reason. They don't work properly. I don't know what it is, but but the disability, it's the person. Yeah, it's barriers is the real issue. Like, you know what? I'm disabled. I can't see the sunset, and that's a problem. But does it stop me from living my life? No. But what does stop me from living is if, you know, I can't get the information off your website. Is that my problem? Is it my fault because I have a disability, or is it because you guys just, you know, made a website using some software that was just an instant publishing kind of crappy software that put stuff up that no one with a talking computer can read? And I'll tell you, if I can't read it with my talking computer, there's a good chance that those people with BlackBerries and those smartphones, they won't be able to have access to it either, because I access the same information they're accessing. So having a good information, it's the barriers that are the problem. It's not necessarily me. I mean, I admit, I'm not going to go out there and drive cars, right? Cars are still a barrier. And my vision is going to prevent that from happening. And I don't imagine they're going to have cars for blind people to drive around soon. But it is really, you know, in practical everyday sense, it's the little things that you can change that eliminate the problems. And I can't change, but those little things. So focus on the barriers, not on the individual. We all have unique requirements. I think I touched on that enough. Everyone's different. Everyone lives with what they got and makes do with what they got. And, you know, for the most part, we don't dwell on it. So just, you know, focus on the person and not on the requirement. But, you know, get to know what those requirements are. Just be discreet, be open-minded, and you can have some fun. You know, humor is a good way to get comfortable with an issue. But, you know, those bald jokes and fat jokes, man, you know, people only take that for so long, right? So same with the blind jokes. And, you know, it's one thing, you know, first couple is okay, but if they go on all week, that just gets a little much. Simple solutions, there's always simple solutions. There's always low-tech workarounds. You know, if you just put your mind to it, it doesn't have to cost anything or almost nothing. and can make a client, you know, a return customer out of someone who's having a potentially bad trip or someone who's not coming at all. So in conclusion, we've got to have some policies, folks, and they deal with the practices of your organization, well, how you operate your organization, and some procedures, how you train your staff, and that's important. It's not about physical access, it's not about the washrooms and ramps and things at this point. This is all about the soft issues. It's all about making people, giving them as much independence as you can, equality, so they can join in with their friends and come to your places, so that they can do as much as they can and still have a safe and enjoyable time. It's about knowing the assistive devices, being comfortable and understanding assistive devices a little bit, making sure your staff know how to operate the ones you have, and making sure that your staff management are a little bit aware of some of the other things that are coming up, whether it's service dogs or people, helping people. Yeah, service dog, support persons. Advance notice if you're having some issues with some of your accessibility features, your cabin, your accessible cabin is being renovated, your wheelchair lift is busted, whatever, that you pop that on the website and let people know, or that you know the clients who are coming, someone calls them and lets them know what's going on. Disruptions in services are published, they got to be published, and complaints need to be dealt with. There has to be a mechanism for hearing complaints, feedback, and feeding back to that. And for those, and then training is a big issue, right? So you got to make sure your staff, third-party management, all those people are trained. That's the big piece. Documenting for those companies, those organizations that have 20 or more employees, you got to write this stuff down, and you're not going to find it on the internet. And you know, you might find stuff on the internet that's pretty general. You're going to pay for it, but really, just work at a, you know. Write it down as you think of it, and track it and keep it in a place, and it'll become part of your training plan, and it'll become part of your, you know, your reference, so for future reference, and then you'll have it. It'll be documented. If someone asks for that, if you have more than 20 people, and someone says, look, can I have, I want to see what your training plan was, you almost have to provide it now under this regulation. If they want to see what training was and when the training took place, you need to have that documented. If you have more than 20 employees, like I said, if under 20 you don't have to document it, but over 20 you need to document. When did the training? Who got the training? What did the training include? And then the whole reporting thing for companies with more than 20 people. You got to report saying, hey, we did the training, we documented our accessibility standards for accessible customer service. It's done, we finished it, we're good to go. I don't know who you're supposed to send that to. I'll get back to you on that. Any questions? Well, thank you, everyone. If anyone has any questions or they want to find out how to get a hold of me, happy to hear from you. I'll be back there in that corner that way. And enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you.